Hello guys, how are you? I want to welcome you to today's session of English for Business. So, we are going to start. I'm gonna share to you today's class. Okay, perfect. Okay, so once again, I want to welcome you to our course, English for Business. And today is session 4. Formality to communicate and provide opinions, or in Spanish it would be formalidad para comunicarse y brindar opiniones. As always, your teacher Liliana Quipuzco. So first, we're going to see the course considerations, okay? Okay, so first, you must speak English during the entire conference. Primero, debes de tratar de hablar inglés durante toda la hora de conferencia. Second, you can ask questions during the course of the conference. Segundo, puedes realizar consultas, preguntas durante el transcurso de la conferencia. Third, I will appreciate you sharing anecdotes, experiences, or maybe any kind of problems you have right now that are related to the subject in order to help you. Tercero, agradeceré que puedas compartir anécdotas, experiencias o tal vez cualquier problema que puedas estar teniendo actualmente que se encuentre relacionado al tema para poder conversarlo y de alguna manera poder ayudarlos. And finally, fourth, at the end of each session, we will have an exam of 10 multiple choice questions. These questions have 4 alternatives. Al final de cada sesión, vamos a tener un examen de 10 preguntas de opción múltiple, las cuales cada pregunta tiene 4 alternativas. This exam and also the material and the video, you will be able to find it in your virtual classroom. Tanto el material de que vamos a utilizar el día de hoy como el examen y el video lo van a poder encontrar en su aula virtual. Okay, so now we're going to start in English our class, today's class. So we said that today's session is formality to communicate and provide opinions. So first of all, we have to know what it is to be polite. How polite should I be? ¿Qué tan cortés debo ser? So first we're gonna see the definition of polite in the dictionaries. First, according to Cambridge Dictionary, polite is behaving in a way that it is socially correct and shows understanding of and care for other people's feelings. On the other hand, Oxford Dictionary says that polite is having or showing behavior that it is respectful and considerate to other people. So in other words, both dictionaries say that polite is a behavior, and this behavior means that you are being respectful and you are being considerate and also to other people or other people's feelings. So you're going to be a little more sensitive to other people's feelings, to be polite. Now, we first ask, how polite should I be? ¿Qué tan, podríamos decir en español, qué tan cortés debo ser? So you have to know that politeness will take you very, very far, not only in personal, but also in business aspects. Why? Why you should be polite? In this case, what do you have to be careful about? You should be careful about talking about politeness with interrupting people. In this case, by interrupting people, we must speak about let finish another people, let finish other people, maybe when they're talking, on when they're saying, they are speaking a sentence. In this means that you have to be careful if you are being short on time, that you don't have too much time, or maybe if you are on a business meeting and you are getting off topic. It means that you are not talking about what you are there, about the business, but maybe you're talking about, maybe you started talking about the weather, or maybe you start talking about maybe some sports or something you and the other person that you're doing business with have in common, and you get involved with it, but it is not about the main subject, that it is business. So you have to be careful with this. Also, you have to be careful when you are talking about inappropriate subjects, for example, sports, and also politics and religion. Religion. You have to be very careful with these topics, and also it is okay to interrupt, but you should be careful with the way you are going to interrupt another person. In this case, I can give you some examples on how to interrupt someone being polite. Okay, so first of all, the first one could be, you can say, "Excuse me, I know how valuable your time is, so I think we should stick to the topic." This could be an example to interrupt someone in a polite way. Another example could be this sentence: "I am really sorry for interrupting, but we are off topic, so maybe we should consider going back to business subject or business matters." That would be another example. And finally, another example would be, "Would you prefer that we hold our questions and suggestions until the end?" This this last sentence, in this case, this question, it is especially when you're in a business meeting and maybe someone is asking you too much questions that you are not able to continue with your presentation. So if the person is asking too many questions and you are considering that it is interrupting, and you cannot make sense of your presentation, maybe you can say, or you can ask to hold the questions until the end. Okay, this is okay. These three ways, remember, that are not the only ways of how to interrupt someone in in a polite way. There are many, many ways, but these three are really are ones that I can give you as an example that maybe you can use. Okay, okay, perfect. So now we're going to see another aspect you should be careful with, and this is nonverbal. For example, nonverbal is when we talk about body movements, how we move, how our body reacts. Also, we can talk about facial expressions, how our face looks, and how it is perceived by other people. In this case, you have to make your listener relax. When you make your listener relax, he's going to um, feel, and he's going to sense that you are having a nonverbal you're having a nonverbal expressions, that they are not going to get distracted by. A very important topic in this matter, it is to leave your problems at home. For example, when you are on a business meeting and maybe you have problems at home maybe with your kids or maybe with your husband or with your wife, you have to be very careful. You have to remember always to be professional and leave these problems at your house, at your home. So when you arrive to the business meeting, you can do this. You can make your listener relax by letting him or her know that you are relaxed. In this case, the the um, the tips that I can give you is maybe you can use a subtle smile. A subtle smile, especially subtle, means that a little smile doesn't have to be too, you don't have to be uh, a hard smile or a very hard facial expression, just a nice smile, subtle, gentle smile. Also, remember to maintain eye contact always so the person knows that you are paying attention and that you are seeking for attention during the presentation. Also, you can raise your eyebrows. For example, this is especially when you are not the one giving the presentation, but maybe you are the one listening to a presentation. So if you agree with what the other person is saying, or you're just following the point, following what they are saying, you can raise your eyebrows as a sign, as a facial expression that you are interested and you are listening and paying attention to the, the presentation. Also, another example is nod your head. Also, when you're having a business presentation, you are listening to the business presentation, and someone is talking to you maybe about some prices and some decisions that you have to make, you can nod your head to let them know that you are listening to them. And finally, it is very important to sit upright. To sit upright, it means to be seated in a right way, in a right position, not just like you are about to sleep on your chair, but it means that if you are sitting upright, it is a sign that you are paying attention. And also, it is a way of showing respect to the person that maybe is listening to you or that you are talking to. Another aspect that we should be careful about is writing. In this case, by writing, we not only mean in formal letters, but we also talk about electronic communication. In this case, by electronic communication, we're talking about emails, maybe if you write through LinkedIn, a Facebook web page, or maybe WhatsApp. Let's remember that nowadays we made a lot of business via WhatsApp because it is a very fast, easy, and free way of getting in touch with other people. Usually it is easier and faster than sending an email. So a lot of business are made right now via WhatsApp. So in this case, with writing, we should be careful and we must consider to keep business emails professional. It doesn't mean that you cannot send an email with just a couple of words. Of course you can do that, but always try to keep professional. Always remember at least to say hello, then write what you want to say, and finally say thank you or give a little greeting of saying goodbye. Try to keep it as professional as you can because if you take it to a more, let's say, personal side, not friendly because you can be friendly and professional, but maybe to a personal side and make these lines between professional and friendly too blurry, maybe when you have a problem you're not going to be able to um, remember that you have to have a line between a professional life and a personal life. So in order to know, don't mix these both worlds, it is better to keep emails professional. If you are seeking to have a friendship with someone that you are doing business, try to do it outside business hours. During business hours, you have to remember always to be professional and also keep the business, the emails, the telephone, maybe if you're talking via telephone or maybe even Skype, try to keep them professional. And another tip, it is to remember that nonverbal is absent. In this case, we have to be careful and read not only once, but maybe twice or three times what you are writing, because maybe you will try to be funny or say a joke or maybe being sarcastic in an email, but you have to remember that communication, in electronic communication, in writing communication, the nonverbal is absent. So the other person that is going to read what you wrote is not going to be able to read it in the way you wrote it. So maybe if you send something that was sarcastic, maybe this person that is going to receive the message is not going to feel that it is a sarcasm. Maybe he may feel it like you are making fun of him or her. So you have to be very, very careful. This is why always you have to try to keep emails and communication, electronic communication or written communication as professional as you can, because nonverbal is absent. And finally, you have to have some considerations. You have to be careful with the considerations. In this case, you have to plan ahead. So if you're going to do a business meeting, you have to be able to take your time and plan ahead what you're going to do. For example, if you are going to talk or you're going to be doing business via telephone, you have to be careful with talking too much time. So maybe before doing this business telephone call or this Skype call, you have to ask the person, hello, I would like to have a business phone call. So maybe can you receive my call? What time can you receive my call? And how much long can we talk? Because we tend, especially we as Peruvians, we like to talk a lot. So we tend to call someone on the phone and maybe spend 30 minutes or maybe an hour talking to them, not just about business, but also we get off topic. So this could be very we have to take this point like very carefully, especially when we're talking to people from other cultures. For example, if we're talking to people from the United States, for them we saw that time is money, so they are not going to take 1 hour to do a business call. Maybe they will just take 10 minutes or 15 minutes, so we have to be careful with this. Also, we have to avoid background noise when we are speaking on the phone or maybe when we are doing a video, maybe a Skype, a video chat. In this case, but background noise, it means that the noise that it is not what you're talking, but it is the noise that it is on the background, on the back. So, for example, if you work on a factory and there are machines that do a lot of noise, you have to be careful. If you know that machines do a lot of work or there's a lot of people that on the background are going to be speaking really loud or maybe yelling, maybe you will have to take your computer or your telephone or your phone to a business room, to a meeting room in this case, or maybe to another place that you're going to be able to speak without this noise of the background as a distraction or as a way of creating miscommunication. Also, you have to respect hierarchy. By this, we're talking about planning ahead. So, how you plan ahead to respect a hierarchy? In this case, for example, if you're going to do a business meeting and you know that you're going to do, maybe you will need some answers about maybe an order, you have to ask who's in charge for buying, for purchasing on the company that I'm going to talk with. Is the assistant in charge of purchasing, or do I have to talk to the business to the purchasing manager, let's say. So if they say, no, you cannot talk to the assistant because she's not going to be able to take decisions, you have to talk to the manager, to purchasing manager, let's say. So you will be planning ahead and you will be respecting this hierarchy and getting an appointment, maybe a business, a telephone appointment with the person that, according to hierarchy, is the one that is in charge of what you need. And finally, you have to avoid conversations about people that are not present. So if you're going to have a meeting, you have to know who's going to be on the meeting. So I know that on the meeting is going to be maybe Mr. Robert, that it is the manager of purchasing, and also Mrs. let's say Gonzalez, that it is the assistant of purchasing. If I had previously talked to, let's say, Mr. Fernandez, that it is the person that is in charge about, let's say, selling, I have to, for a respect matter, I have to avoid maybe any kind of conversations or maybe any kind of comments on this person, in this case, Mr. Fernandez, because he is not going to be present on the meeting, especially if those are negative comments that are not related or are not you don't have to talk about them. There are not especially to talk in this. Maybe if you had a problem with this person, maybe you want to make a complaint, you can wait until the meeting is over, until the business meeting is over to talk about this in privately, maybe manager to manager or to the person that is in charge, but not on a business meeting with other people that are involved. So you are not going to mess up and create a bad environment between the people that work in this company. Okay, so these are some topics that you have to be careful with when you are talking about politeness. So now, see, we're going to talk about some tips for business interactions. First of all, you have to always greet courteously. In this case, you have to be nice to the people that you're going to do business with. Maybe if you met them before, not on a business matter, but maybe on a personal matter, or you work with them before, and you know that maybe you don't like this person, or maybe this person is not nice to you. You have to try to forget about this, and you have to create them as nice as you can, because we're talking about your professional image on the line. So you always have to create as nice as you can to everybody that you're going to do business with, no matter the problems that you may have, that maybe you had previously, or maybe the problems that you have on a personal level. Always remember to say thank you at the beginning and at the end of every conversation or request. If you're going to start a conversation, say thank you at the beginning of the conversation. Just say thank you for letting me be here or for having me, and also at the end, thank you for having me. Thank you for coming here to this business meeting. And also, when you're doing a request, for example, if you're going to ask for let's say any kind of request of information, or maybe you're going just to ask for let's say any kind of request of what could it be, maybe you're going to do some business, you're going to buy or you're going to sell, and you need to do a request. Always remember to say thank you before asking this request, and also when you get what you ask for, also say thank you, because this means that not only the manager was in charge of giving you this information, but behind them there was maybe another person, maybe an assistant that was helping in the matters of getting this the information that you ask. So you always have to be thankful. for everybody, for their cooperation, in order for you to have what you need or what you're asking for. Okay. Also, remember to be more polite, um, formal. If you meet with someone that you haven't previously met, um, let's say you always have to be polite and formal, of course, but if it is someone that you don't know at all, that is the first time that you are meeting, you have to be a little more careful. Be a little extra polite and formal because it is going to be the first interaction that you're going to have with this person, and it is going to be the first impression. And remember that always the first most most of the time the first impression is the one that sticks to the people, so you have to be really careful. Also, another tip is to listen. If you're in a business meeting, you're doing some business interactions and someone is talking to you, you must be careful with interrupting. If you're going to interrupt, as I previously um, give you the example, you can interrupt in some really polite ways, but also you have to make time to listen and not speak and try to understand what the other people is trying to express. Also remember to be calm and listen. Always, if a client or maybe a customer is angry or complaining. This is sometimes difficult because if we're talking to professional people, the people that have a higher education, maybe they're going to complain in a more polite way. But if we are talking to day-to-day people or maybe people that doesn't have emotional stability, it is going to be a little hard because they are going to be really angry or maybe they will talk us in a harsh way. So we have to try to remember to keep as much calm as we can and listen to them so they know that we are listening. And after they finish, we can try to solve the problem. But remember that if someone is trying to be aggressive towards you and try maybe to attack you, in this case, you are not going to be just remaining calm and listening. You will have to say that you are sorry, but you will have to step back because this is getting too confrontational. Okay? Also, remember to own up to your mistakes. If you made a mistake, you have to own it up. It means that you have to let know. First of all, you have to know yourself. You have to recognize that you made a mistake, and you have to let the other person know that you made a mistake and that you're going to find a solution. Many times, owning up a mistake and letting the other person know that you're owning it up, it is going to help. It is going to make the other person calm because you're recognizing your mistake and that you're going to try to find a solution. Another tip, it is to be considered to other schedules, especially when you are in different time zones. For example, if we are going to talk right now to a person that it is in, let's say, Beijing, in this case, Beijing is in China. So we have to be considerate to the other person's times and schedules. For example, let's find out very quickly what time it is in Beijing now. So right now in Beijing it is 9:29 a.m. So right now it is a good time to talk to someone that is in Beijing, China. So we are going to be considered to this person because he's on already on a business hours. So if you are talking to people that is in another time zones, you have to always remember to check on Google what time is it on the other place. You can check the first um, sessions when we talk about this, and we saw how we can do this, how we can search the time in another, uh, what time it is in another country via Google. In this case, many times when you, especially when you're talking to Asian countries, you will have to maybe you will have to stay on your office until late. Like right now in Peru, it is 8:30 p.m. Or maybe you will have to take your work home. Especially when you do business with Asian countries, you tend to do business via emails, and it take a little longer because of the time difference. But if you are able to take and give a call from your house at these hours of the afternoon, in this case night, it would be okay. Remember that always you can leave a WhatsApp message. Sometimes, especially people from China, they tend to answer no matter what time it is over there. But even though they answer back, no matter what time it is, you really have to be careful because you don't want to send someone a message when they are on their sleeping time because you wouldn't like someone is writing to you on WhatsApp when you're sleeping, right? So you have to be considerate with this. And finally, you have to try to not point out when someone else is being polite. If you're in a business meeting and someone is being unpolite, it is not correct to point it out on that moment if you can let it pass, because maybe you can pick up a fight or pick up a confrontation. If this person is being too rude or is being disrespectful, it's been disrespectful, you can point it out or maybe ask the person to leave the room politely, and maybe you can deal with the with this problem after the business meeting. It is actually a really difficult that someone is unpolite on a business meeting because everybody comes with a nice vibe because everybody wants to do the business and they want to sell or maybe they want to buy, but it could happen and you have to be like really calm in order to be able to handle the situation. Now we are going to see we're going to talk how to give opinions. In this case, there are so many ways that you can express your opinions. For example, you can express when you are in the beginning of a meeting, when you're trying to give examples, when you're trying to express preferences, and when you are disagreeing. In this case, you have to be very careful because you are saying that you don't think the same way the other person is thinking. So first of all, let's see some samples for when you are beginning. In this case, when you're beginning a business presentation or a business meeting, you can say, I would like to begin by letting you know maybe that I'm really happy to be on this business meeting and I hope that we can make some business. Another way that you can say it is, I would like to mention briefly, it means that really, really short. I would like to mention briefly that, is this one? I would like to mention briefly that today, I expect to achieve this, and this goals with you. And another example that you can make, it is there are, for example, let's say there are 3 points I would like to make. First of all, I would like to thank you for being here. Second, I would like to get to know each other. And third, I would like to um, know my product and know that it's a good quality. Let's say, for example, these are some expressions on how to you can begin a business meeting or a presentation by giving your opinion. Now, how can you give examples? Some expressions that you can use in order to give examples are the following. For example, you can say, let me give you an example, and then you can talk about the example that you want to say. Another one is, take for example the case of, let's say the case of my previous buyer. Um, he wasn't making too many good sales, so I was not able to give a better price, for example. Another one could be, To illustrate this point, let us consider the following example, and you can start talking about an example. These are three expressions that you can use for giving examples. Then we can talk about preferences, and the expressions that you can use to say preference is are these ones. You can say, I would rather to give you a higher uh, price product that it is of a better quality than give you a cheaper price for a bad quality product. For example, another expression could be, I prefer that you sell to me this product in this color because I know that this product is going to sell better. Let's say, for example. And another example of saying preferences, in this case for business meeting, would be the main advantage of my product is that you are getting a better quality, a product that is going to last for a long time, and a product that it is really eye-catching, let's say. This could be some examples to express maybe some preferences on a business meeting or on a business presentation. And finally, we're going to talk about disagreeing. By disagreeing, it means that you are not thinking the same way the other person is thinking. In this case, you could say the following expressions. You can say, I'm of a different opinion because on my experience, I know that this product is not going to work for my country, let's say. Another example could be, I don't completely agree with you on that. And then you can say, because of my experience, I know that it is not going to work. This kind of product is not going to work for Peru, let's say. And finally, another expression could be, I respect your opinion, of course. However, I don't feel the same. I think that maybe we could try to find another way of working together because that way is not going to work with my company's values or my company's strategies, let's say. So these are some expressions that you can use for giving your opinions. Remember that these are some examples. It doesn't mean that these are the only ways you can use them. These are just some examples. If you find another kind of expressions that that are much better to what you're talking or what you are trying to express, it is okay. These are just some examples that I can give you. And now we're going to see a video. In this case, we're going to see a video of how miscommunication happens. So this is a very interesting video. I'm going to share with you my video, my web page. So let me take 1 second so I can share with you this. So I would really like you to let me know if you can. I'm going to share to you my okay. So Aldair, please let me know if you can listen to the video.
Have you ever presented an idea to a group and it's met with utter confusion? Or maybe you've been in an argument when the other person suddenly accuses you of not listening. Have you ever talked with a friend about a problem only to realize that he just doesn't seem to grasp why the issue is so important to you? Have you ever presented an idea to a group and it's met with utter confusion? Or maybe you've been in an argument when the other person suddenly accuses you of not listening to what they're saying at all. What's going on here? The answer is miscommunication, and in some form or another, we've all experienced it. It can lead to confusion, animosity, misunderstanding, or even crashing a multi-million-dollar probe into the surface of Mars. The fact is, even when face to face with another person, in the very same room and speaking the same language, human communication is incredibly complex. But the good news is that a basic understanding of what happens when we communicate can help us prevent miscommunication. For decades, researchers have asked what happens when we communicate. One interpretation, called the transmission model, views communication as a message that moves directly from one person to another, similar to someone tossing a ball and walking away. But in reality, this simplistic model doesn't account for communication's complexity. Enter the transactional model, which acknowledges the many added challenges of communicating. With this model, it's more accurate to think of communication between people as a game of catch. As we communicate our message, we receive feedback from the other party. Through the transaction, we create meaning together. But from this exchange, further complications arise. It's not like the Star Trek universe, where some characters can Vulcan mind meld, fully sharing thoughts and feelings. As humans, we can't help but send and receive messages through our own subjective lenses. When communicating, one person expresses her interpretation of a message, and the person she's communicating with hears his own interpretation of that message. Our perceptual filters continually shift meanings and interpretations. Remember that game of catch? Imagine it with a lump of clay. As each person touches it, they shape it to fit their own unique perceptions, based on any number of variables, like knowledge or past experience, age, race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or family background. Simultaneously, every person interprets the message they receive based on their relationship with the other person and their unique understanding of the semantics and connotations of the exact words being used. They could also be distracted by other stimuli, such as traffic or a growling stomach. Even emotion might cloud their understanding. And by adding more people into a conversation, each with their own subjectivities, the complexity of communication grows exponentially. So as the lump of clay goes back and forth from one person to another, reworked, reshaped, and always changing, it's no wonder our messages sometimes turn into a mush of miscommunication. But luckily, there are some simple practices that can help us all navigate our daily interactions for better communication. 1. Recognize that passive hearing and active listening are not the same. Engage actively with the verbal and nonverbal feedback of others and adjust your message to facilitate greater understanding. 2. Listen with your eyes and ears, as well as with your gut. Remember that communication is more than just words. 3. Take time to understand as you try to be understood. In the rush to express ourselves, it's easy to forget that communication is a two-way street. Be open to what the other person might say. And finally, 4. Be aware of your personal perceptual filters. Elements of your experience, including your culture, community, and family, influence how you see the world. Say, "This is how I see the problem, but how do you see it?" Don't assume that your perception is the objective truth. That'll help you work towards sharing a dialogue with others to reach a common understanding together.
Okay, so we saw this video, and the main points that we can see in here, and we saw on this video, are first of all, miscommunication. It means that I'm sending a message, but you are not getting the message as I wanted, but you're interpreting it your own way. So that's when it happened, the miscommunications. In this case, the main points from this video are culture differences. Remember that culture differences, religious differences are always going to influence the way you understand things. In this case, If you're talking to people from other cultures, what you have to do is talk about the differences. For example, in this case, I can give you the example of maybe doing business with people from China, especially when you are buying via an Alibaba web page. For example, if we are doing a really professional require of a quote, in this case, the requirement of a quote would be una cotización in Spanish. In this case, people from this kind of web page, for example, Alibaba, tend to be really informal. So we send a really formal email asking for a quote, but they answer back with a really informal answer, just saying the price and no more information about the shipping or any extra information that we may need. So in this case, we have to talk about it. So we might say, hello, I received your answer, but I want you to let you know that in Peru we need as an answer a really formal quote so we can consider you as a potential supplier. So if you do this, the other person is going to know that you want to do business, but you need a formal answer. So they are going to um, understand what you ask for, and they are going to fix this miscommunication by sending you a formal code. And I can say to you this because it is from my own experience. I have experienced this, and Chinese people from China, from Alibaba web pages, they will not have any kind of problem of sending you a formal code. Another is to avoid distraction. As I say, we talk about avoiding background noise. We talk about going to a better place where we can have communication without any kind of visual distractions, maybe. And a really, maybe we can say funny or kind of obvious distraction, it would be a growling stomach. So another tip would be if you're going to go to a meeting, remember to always maybe eat a little something for the meeting, so your stomach is not going to be bother you. So you're not going to be maybe listening to a presentation or giving a presentation, and on the back of your head you're going to be, oh, I'm hungry, my stomach is growling. So this will be a really nice, but always remember to don't eat too much, because if you eat too much or if you drink too much, your mind is not going to be on that you are hungry or that you are thirsty, but you're going to be, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. And we know that when we need to go to the bathroom, it is going, our head gets distracted completely, and we're just thinking about going to the bathroom. So we must be careful with this because this could be a point of making miscommunication happens. Another one is feedback. Remember that, as the video says, communication is a two-way street. So it is giving and receiving. So when we are giving a presentation, we're going to receive a feedback. Maybe we're going to receive someone raising an eyebrow, or maybe someone nodding their head, or maybe someone just saying a word like yes, it is okay, or maybe some questions. So this is good feedback. But remember that if there is feedback, but to a point that it is distracting, that is interrupting, maybe too many questions, we could ask for the questions to be to wait until the end so they can ask, so we are not interrupted. It is okay. So we have to be careful to know when a feedback is, it becomes a distraction, or it is interrupting a meeting. And finally, I can talk about the own interpretations, and this means it is very related to how people interpret what you are expressing. So always, especially be careful when you are having a communication via um, an electronic communication, or maybe in a writing way, because if someone is writing, they are not, maybe they are not going to understand the way that you are saying. They are not going to read, or they are not going to read in their head like you are like you are trying to express. They are going to read it as they express it as their own interpretation. So you have to be as professional as possible so there are no miscommunications or maybe no hard feelings. Okay, so finally I'm going to leave you here all the references so you can check them later. And let's remember that today we saw how to be polite. We saw the meanings from the dictionaries. We saw some aspects that we have to be careful about. Then we saw some tips for business interactions. Then we talk about how to give opinions, the differences, the many ways of expressing your opinions. And finally, we saw a video of how miscommunications happens. Okay, so finally, there are some informal and formal expressions. First, some expressions that you can give your opinions are in an informal way are I reckon, there is like I recognize, or in my opinion, and then you said your opinion. Another one is if you ask me, I can say that my opinion is the following, and another could be frankly speaking, this is my opinion about this matter. Finally, some formal ways of expressing your opinions are I think, and then you say your opinion, in my view, as far as I am concerned, personally, to be honest, to be frank, it seems to me that, and then you give your opinion, and finally, all things considered, and then you say your opinion. These are very simple ways of expressing your opinions. These ones I remember you that are informal and these ones are formal. Again, remember that these are not the only ways of expressing your opinions. There could be many, many ways of expressing your opinions. These are just some examples of how to give an opinion. Again, finally, I give you the references from today's session so you can check them later. And remember that if you have any kind of questions, you can always write to the guys at Comics, and um, the email is info@comicsperu.org.pe. In Spanish, it would be info@comicsperu.org.pe. If you have any questions or any doubts, you can write to them, and they will let you know. They will answer you back, or maybe if they have to ask with me, they will let me know the question, and they will get back to you. And finally, I want to thank you for your attention. I hope that you learn a little more today. And we saw session 4, formality to communicate and provide opinions. In Spanish, it will be formalidad para comunicarse y brindar opiniones. And your teacher, Liliana Quipuzco. Also remember that on your virtual classroom, you're going to be able to find this video, you're going to be able to find this material, this presentation, and also the 10 multiple choice exam. The 10 multiple choice questions, the sum of 10 multiple choice questions. Okay, so perfect. Finalmente, recuerda que en el aula virtual vas a poder encontrar tanto el material de hoy, las PPTs que hemos visto el día de hoy, el video del día de hoy y también el examen de 10 preguntas de opción múltiple. Finally, I want to thank you again and I hope to see you next week. Okay? Take care. Bye bye. Finalmente, te quiero agradecer por estar presente el día de hoy y espero verte la siguiente semana. Cuídense.